Multiple legacy media outlets are reporting on more than 300 pages of emails and documents that were exchanged between the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden's legal team. And as you parse through all the coverage and all the details, there seem to be two major details that emerge. First of all, it's extremely unlikely that Hunter Biden would have faced any charges at all were it not for the recent testimony from two IRS whistleblowers. Secondly, Hunter Biden's attorneys threatened to call President Biden to the stand as a witness for the defense. And this is the president who pledged to restore norms to the White House. Well, joining me now to discuss this and more is Congressman Tim Walberg. He serves on the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, as well as the Committee on Education and Workforce. He serves and represents the 5th Congressional District of Michigan. Congressman Walberg, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you, my friend.
Jody, good to be with you as always, and thanks for hosting this interesting program.
Well, it's always great, and we love to bring people who are on the tip of the spear, such as yourself, to keep us all up to speed as to what's going on. So let's get into this. The revelations on Hunter Biden's prosecution, or lack thereof, whatever it's going to be, it appears as though were it not for the public testimony of a couple of IRS whistleblowers, very likely his whole prosecution would be ignored. The tax delinquency, the illegal gun purchase, all this sort of stuff would probably have just been swept under the rug. What's your take on it all?
Well, absolutely. And you saw the plea deal that was almost accepted until a judge actually looked at what was being said there and said, oops, I don't understand why some of these provisions are there, including that this is the worst you'll ever be given if we accept this plea deal. So they caught it. But this goes back when you were still in Congress, when campaigns were going on for the presidency, when President Biden was not president, and there was no reason why any would say you shouldn't carry out the law because it might impact a presidency of a sitting president. That's used so much right now. But the vice president wasn't. We know that there was information that could have altered the election, definitely, and it might have altered it in the right way, as opposed to all of the stuff that went on about Trump, the illegitimate information that was given out, the impact of the legal entities, especially the Department of Justice, and what they were willing to do to hide any of the wrongdoing that was going on with Hunter, and ultimately concerns that those wrongdoings also impacted the former vice president of the United States, the candidate for presidency, and now to this very day, the president of the United States, who seems to be above the law as we look further at the details that are coming out. Thankfully, people like Jamie Comer and Jim Jordan, chair of two very appropriate and necessary committees, Judiciary and Oversight. You and I both served on Oversight at one time, and it's doing its job, and ultimately got whistleblowers who were fed up with what was going on with a department that's important to the credibility, the legality, and the continuance of our country being caught in doing things that would go outside of the law.
Yeah, it really is so disturbing as you watch all this. It's just really unbelievable to think that we're seeing the rule of law being turned upside down. And, I just wonder if U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland is ever going to be able to restore confidence to the American people. Let me switch topics with you somewhat. The border remains an absolute crisis under President Biden, and Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas as well. It's just horrible what's happening there. Illegal border crossings rose 33% last month. And, we continue to watch all these so-called sanctuary cities and their mayors complain about the pain that they're feeling as all these migrants are coming into their cities. Give me your thoughts as to what's happening on the border and the mayors that are complaining about it, and where do we go from here?
It's a border that's wide open, And again, we're talking about, I believe, with full intent to allow these illegal immigrants who legally could be called trespassers, who have invaded this country, some with all the right reasons. Why wouldn't you want to come to America with the history that's behind America? But you've got to come legally, or it's a nation without laws. I just talked with a friend of mine who came back from Turkey and a visit over there, and talking with some of the rank and file citizens, they were very, very frustrated with Erdogan's involvement in allowing anyone and everyone to come into the country, because Erdogan understands that more that he lets in, the more will vote for him to keep him as a dictator. The same is taking place here in the United States. It may backfire on them. I hope it does. But in the meantime, we are overrun in our cities, in our communities. Every state is a border state, including Michigan, not only because of our northern border, where we have people coming in illegally, but because everyone who comes from the south has been shipped out all of the United States into Michigan as well. And what is that doing for our country? But establishing the fact that the very first thing you realize when you come to the United States is that the law isn't made for everybody. Only those that will use it on. The rest of you are free to come. And now we find out that the Biden administration has been quietly selling the remaining sections of the border wall that were paid for and expected by the taxpayer to be put up. And under Trump's administration, much of it was, but those pieces of the structure that weren't put up are now being auctioned off for pennies on a dollar. Why? To make sure that it is not put up, and that the Senate and the House, in talking through legislation to continue building the wall, has nothing to build with. That's discouraging. It's frustrating. And having been down the border twice this year, during the Biden administration and several times during the Trump administration, it's a total different ballgame down there right now. It is wide open. And our law enforcement entities are frustrated. Our communities are frustrated. But more importantly, it's impacting the freedom, opportunity, and security of America.
You know, I just late last week met with a rural Georgia sheriff. And before I left, he said, "Jody, come back here. I want to show you something." He took me in the back room. Grocery bags, plural, filled with fentanyl and drugs in little plastic packets, each of them, but they were filled. And all of it's coming from the southern border. You were right when you say every state, every community is a border state right now. Let me switch gears one more time on you. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, I had a discussion about civil asset forfeiture and how many innocent American citizens and business owners are being subjected to loss of property and even all their money being seized without even committing a crime. You have reintroduced legislation. We talked about you on that program. Tell us what you've done to help bring the reins in on this out-of-control aspect of our government.
Well, I appreciate that. And I saw your interview with Dan Albin, and he expressed it very clearly, the concern. We aren't going against law enforcement. We're supporting law enforcement, but we're going against something that is insidious, in that we would encourage law enforcement for the benefit of dollars, and we need to fund the police. We need to provide more funding for the police to do what they need to do, but to give any indication that law enforcement is tackling innocent citizens and using civil asset forfeiture to take their resources, whether it be bank resources or their property for sale or their cars, knowing that many of these people don't have the resources to hire an attorney to get their due process rights carried out. Because under civil asset forfeiture, there is really no due process. You are guilty until proven innocent, and that's the problem. So what we're saying is that at the federal level, when you have asset forfeiture that can be shared asset forfeiture by the feds getting the local authorities, county, state, municipal law enforcement entities to go in with them. And then under the promise of receiving 80% to 100% of the resources that come from forfeiture properties, that can be a tremendously drawing piece of information for law
Tim, we've got
enforcement
about 20 seconds.
that needs dollars. So what we're saying is, let's give due process, carry it out as normal. Let's make sure that none of those dollars go to the law enforcement. Let's pay them the right way. Let's make sure that we don't give people the opinion that law enforcement is working against them for profit for their own.
Congressman Tim Walberg, thank you so much for joining us, fellow pastor, great leader in Congress. It's an honor to have you on Washington Watch.
Thank you so much.